Welcome to the show, guys. Got an exciting one here for you. There is no safety and security in fantasy football, but I've got the top 10 players that have been safe and secure the entire season. I've whittled it down to the top 10, and I'm going to give you guys some bonuses as well. These are the guys that are going to perform, theoretically, based on what we've seen, all the way to the rest of the season at a consistent level. So that is something that is very rare in fantasy football. Consistency and constant production week in, week out. Now, there's guys like Jefferson, there's other big names that are good. They're great. They're top 10 players right now when you look at it from a fantasy perspective, but they've got some dud games in there. The 10 that I've got here have been consistent pretty much the entire season. I'm going to tell you who they are, why you should trade for them, and if you've got them on your team, why you should keep them. So a very important episode, guys. We're talking about the most rare thing in fantasy football, the guarantee, which again is very hard to find. So 10 players that are the safest, handpicked by me. I've researched them. These guys are producing. These are the guys you should and want to have on your team for the rest of the season that are going to maintain that consistent production. So top 10 players that are consistent, going to get to it right now. Now, you've seen George Kittle, Dak Prescott, and Travis Kelce on the field, but you've never seen them this way. They are giving back, guys, to 3 community heroes by offering them the free truck, guys. They are giving them their dream truck. Compliments of @RealTruck. This is called the Truck It List, guys. There's a new episode coming out tomorrow. I'm excited. I know I talked about it last week. I've been watching the episodes. New one coming out tomorrow. Here's a preview. Check out how cool this is. It's amazing.
What happens with someone who spent their whole life
given to others, finally get something in return?
We're handing these keys over to you.
Oh my God.
Yes. So that we can make sure
This is the story of unsung heroes,
Amazing trucks.
and dreams that come true.
I'm Dak Prescott.
I'm George Kittle.
I'm Travis Kelce.
And this is the Truck It List.
This is the Truck It List.
This is the Truck It List.
Is that enough about it? You trying to take it for a spin?
I'm ready.
All right, guys, there's a preview to watch it. Go to @RealTruck on Instagram. I've also linked the website below, guys, thetruckitlist.com. Real Truck is amazing. They're giving back to the community heroes. Compliments with these players, right? With these players, they've come in and they're offering these trucks, these dream trucks to people that have contributed to society, contributed to the community. It's an amazing, inspirational story. Go check it out right now @RealTruck. Amazing stories. New episode coming out tomorrow. Go check out the website. Again, I've linked it below. All right, let's talk about these 10 safe players. I'm excited to dive in. If you're new to the channel, make sure you guys do hit that subscribe button. Love to get your feedback on who you think is the most consistent player. Now, there's a couple players here that I've listed that I wasn't high on going into the season. I'm going to explain why. And they've proved I think there's about 2 of them, maybe 3 of them that have proven me completely wrong. But again, I'm okay because I ended up avoiding them and getting other players that I'm okay either way. So, safe players, let's talk about it. Again, it's going to be not so much a list. It's going to be a list, but I want to have an open discussion more or less, all right? First one here, when we're looking at the overall offense, is Pat Mahomes. Pat Mahomes has been consistent. He's had one down week, and I wouldn't even consider 17.9 points down. It was in week 3. That's it. That's his lowest scoring game. And I'm going to talk about some of their lowest scoring games here as we're going through. Pat Mahomes, guys, no game under 17 points. And I'm talking PPR. Quarterback doesn't matter so much. He is number 1 in fantasy points, 262.4, heading into NFL week 12. Pat Mahomes is consistent as they come. It goes without saying. And you're saying, well, Joe, this is obvious stuff. It is, but we need to discuss it. We need to talk about who's been most consistent because a lot of these people have been consistent, but there's some volatility. Like I said, a perfect example would be Justin Jefferson, who's sitting 11th right now amongst wide receivers. Yes, he has been consistent, but he's had a dud game in week 3. He had a dud game in week 11. And, he's had 2 dud games, and he had a 10-pointer in week 2. Okay, so he's had some inconsistencies, and we saw how bad they played against Dallas last game. Again, could he be good? Yes. And again, he's probably one of the safest players to get, but I'm even going safer. So you want to know who the safest are. Here they are, okay? So Pat Mahomes, super safe. Hasn't even had a dud game. Okay, you want to count week 3, I guess, with 17 points. Next guy here, again, I wasn't high on him, is Austin Eckler. He's been consistent as they come. A big part of that, obviously, for Austin Eckler, I'm not trying to make excuses. He's sitting number 4 in fantasy points amongst all players with 230 points. A big part of that is that they've been banged up. Mike Williams was banged up, came back, got hurt again. Keenan Allen was out. They've got no receivers, right? Who they got? Palmer. And it's like he's been getting a lot of those plays. He's got that safety blanket with Justin Herbert, so he's been getting a lot of those receptions. And he has been safe the entire season. Now, he did have the only dud game he had was week 1, 11.2 points, and he had a 13-pointer in week 10, and that's it. There hasn't been a bad game under 10 points, and that's what I'm saying. Like, he is one of the safest players. Is it going to continue the rest of the season? It's very possible. It's very possible. But obviously, the Chargers believe in him. Why didn't I believe in him? Well, because he had a pinnacle season last year, and the years before he sucked. The first couple years of his rookie year, he had like a combined, 2 or 3 rushing touchdowns the first couple years. It was terrible. And then he got the start, and he's kind of found his own groove, and he owns himself in fantasy football. So obviously he believes in himself. So Austin Eckler, I mean, he's as consistent as they come as of right now, sitting 4th in fantasy points, lowest game being 11.2 points. So good on him. Next guy here, he had a 10.2 point week, I think in week, what week was it? Let me pull up. The guy I'm talking about is Stephon Diggs, sitting number 5 in fantasy points. I'm pulling up his PPR numbers right now. He had a 10.2 point week in week 4. That's it. That's his worst game, was a 10.2. Other than that, this guy's been consistent as they come, coming off a 14.8 week last week, 24.8 the week before. In week 10, he's consistent. Heading into NFL week 12, when you're looking at a plug-and-play wide receiver, this is a guy you want in. Now, Joe, why are you telling me the safest players? Well, because, guys, there is no safety and security in fantasy football. And this is why it's so important that we talk about these guys, because we saw it last week. Saquon Barkley didn't have a good week, 5.5 points. We saw that. We saw A.J. Brown having a bunch of dud weeks. We saw Jefferson having a couple, a dud game. A lot of guys crapped the bed last week. Nick Chubb having a mediocre game. Dameon Pierce, a ton of players that are big names that have been consistent, having down weeks. We need that consistency. These are it. And Stephon Diggs coming at number 3. Number 4 goes without saying. Travis Kelce, as consistent as they come, had himself a 10.1 low in week 2. Number 8 in fantasy points right now. Travis Kelce, as consistent as they come, without a doubt. Probably the most consistent in fantasy player history. This guy doesn't have a down year. This guy doesn't get hurt. He's as consistent as they come. Travis Kelce, absolutely amazing. And again, he makes the top 10 list so far, again, heading into week 12 as one of the most consistent players in fantasy. Next guy here is Davante Adams, sitting number 10 in fantasy, a guy that I was low on, but listen to the reason I was low on him. The reason I was low on him were a couple reasons. Derek Carr sucks, and he's proven he sucks because he can't really win. I mean, I think they won last week. That was it, with Adams getting a walk-off touchdown. But again, it's like not Derek Carr sucks, and I think the Raiders are finally seeing it. That was reason number 1. But he is feeding Adams, and a big part of that is because Waller and Renfrow are out. These were the main stipulations with me, because Renfrow was the wide receiver 1 last year, and he was still there, and Waller was the wide receiver 1 back in a couple years ago, and he was still there. So because they got hurt, they've got no one else to throw to. So Adams has been absolutely thriving. Good on him, and he's the most consistent player in the game. Now, he did have a dud game, one dud game at 1.2 points, but that shouldn't disqualify him as being the most consistent wide receiver in fantasy as of right now. Targets, volume, touchdowns, all going his way. And again, it's because of the injuries of Waller and Renfrow and that safety security blanket of Derek Carr. He's got no one else to throw to. Adams is the guy, and he is benefiting predicate on volume and talent altogether, comboing in a winning combination. It's okay. I avoid him because I drafted the guy, that I'm going to mention right here at number 6, Derrick Henry, who's also one of the safest players in fantasy, sitting 13th in points right now. A guy you can plug and play every single week and is consistent. Derrick Henry, love him. And again, everyone has had him below. They had him below Dalvin Cook. Most people had him below Dalvin Cook anyway, prior to the season, and they all had him below Jonathan Taylor. I'm like, no, man, he's coming back for a bounce back year. He's phenomenal. Now, he had a couple dud games early in the season, a couple 8-pointers. He had 8.7 in week 10. But other than that, consistent as they come. Week 2 to 9, consistent. He had a 25-point week in week 11. Consistent, solid, heavy production, MVP potential candidate. He's had, 1, 2, 3, 5 games over 100 yards rushing. Again, looking absolutely phenomenal this season. Derrick Henry sitting, again, 13th in fantasy points right now. He's had over 1,000 rushing yards as well. So that is something that definitely I talked about. This is a guy that's going to get the volume. He's going to get the rushing yard. He's the only running back as of right now. He's over 1,000 rushing yards. The only one behind him is Saquon at 953. Josh Jacobs at 930. Nick Chubb at 923. And it isn't even close after that. So Derrick Henry, cracking 1,000 yards already heading into NFL Week 12. Absolutely amazing, and as consistent as they come. People know that, and I'm reiterating it. I'm talking about it again. All right, Saquon Barkley, number 7, had a bad week, and I ripped on him on social media. Saquon Barkley is very consistent. He's very hungry, sitting 18th in fantasy points. Again, he's had a couple dud games, including the 5.5er this past week. Saquon Barkley, again, had a couple dud games, 5.5, and he had, I wouldn't even say it a dud, but 11.8 week 2 PPR point. He disappoints here in week 11. Going into week 12, he's got to pick it back up. And that's the bottom line, because, again, he knows he's negotiating a contract. They're talking to him. He can't be having dud games. He's got to step it back up, and he will. Should be a strong finish for Saquon Barkley, as consistent as they come. 3 more guys here that worth mentioning. Justin Fields has been consistent as they come the past 5 to 6 weeks, sitting 6th in fantasy points right now. Again, I still think he's a guy that is kind of under the radar to some degree. I understand, well, what do you mean under the radar? He's not a big name. He's still not a Pat Mahomes. So there's a chance that you can negotiate and trade for him. There is an opportunity for you to do that in your leagues, I'm sure. Consistent since week 5, 17 points, 18 points, 23, 26, 42, 39, and 22 points, give or take a half a point here or there. We're talking PPR numbers. Obviously, quarterback doesn't matter. Works out the same way mathematically, depending on your scoring format. But consistent, again, since week 5. Absolutely amazing. Every single week, getting it done with passing touchdowns, getting it done in rushing touchdowns. He's had a rushing touchdown every game since week 7 and 2 in week 10. So, I mean, he just keeps going. Passing touchdowns, rushing touchdowns. He throws a couple interceptions. He had 4 interceptions thrown since week 6. Again, very consistent. Rushing yards are there. Rushing touchdowns are there. Passing touchdowns are there, consistent as they come. Now, he did have a shoulder dislocation, but it's not in his passing arm. He's day-to-day. It's on his left shoulder. He's going to be good to go. Banged up, day-to-day. It's okay. He'll be back to it. Now, this may limit his running a little bit, but I still think he stays consistent. There is, again, he could be fearful running. Just be aware of that. But if not, if his shoulder's fine, the most consistent player in fantasy. 2 more players here, guys. Tyreek Hill had a 5.3-pointer week 2. Consistent, after that, as consistent as they come. And number 10 here, Amari Cooper. He has 3 dud games, but the possible return of Watson has a ton of upside for Amari Cooper. He's a clear-cut wide receiver 1 on an offense that gets a lot of volume to him. Amari Cooper and Tyreek Hill at 9 and 10. Drop a comment below. Let me know, are these guys the safest? What do you guys think? Drop it below. Love to get your feedback. And head on over to @RealTruck on Insta, or check out the Truck It list. And right now, go watch the latest episode coming out tomorrow. All right, guys? Subscribe, thumbs up. I appreciate you guys. I am out. We'll talk soon.